If you're an ultra runner looking for a shoe that can take on any terrain, any conditions, and is built to last, look no further than the Scott Ultracarbon RC. What's up everyone, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Bod TV. Today we're going to be talking about the Scott Ultracarbon RC. The shoe was sent to me directly from Scott Sports for free for the purpose of review. However, no one from Scott Sports will see this review beforehand, and these thoughts are entirely my own. Now this shoe is built for 100-miler plus ultras, or just ultra running in general, and because of that they made a couple of different decisions within the shoe that we'll talk about. Alright, now that that stuff's out of the way, let's dive into the specs. The Scott Ultracarbon RC comes in at 11.1 ounces, which is very much on the heavier side of shoes. The midsole is made of what's called a kinetic light foam. I believe that that is actually EVA based, but you can feel it. It's pretty firm overall. This is also Scott's first shoe overall with a carbon fiber plate directly from Carbitex, which is the kind of primary provider of carbon fiber plates for running shoes. And what's really interesting is the way that the plate is designed is to flex in different ways depending on the speeds that you're running. So when you're walking, it's not really supposed to impede kind of your ability to move, but then as you start to run, it kind of gets more rigid and provides a little bit more pop. The heel comes in at 35.5 millimeters, while the forefoot is 30.5, giving it a 5 millimeter heel to toe drop, which is pretty consistent with a lot of trail shoes out there today. The upper is made from an engineered mesh with what they call TPU overlays. All that means it's kind of these plasticky areas. So you'll see you kind of have this toe cap to protect the toes from any rocks, terrain. You also have a couple of different overlays here in the heel and throughout the shoe itself. The outsole is a very durable rubber and features what they call ultra traction, which is essentially the design or the lug pattern that they utilize, which is going to be built for some nice rolling trails, a little bit of technical terrain, just a little bit of a mix of everything. And it technically has kind of this rotational pattern so that you're not slipping and sliding in either direction, regardless of what the terrain is doing underfoot. Outside of that, you'll find that there is some strategically placed cushion around the ankle and the heel counter here to give you a little bit of extra comfort, and the tongue itself is fully gusseted. As far as fit of this shoe, I found that this shoe fits fairly narrow, at least around kind of the midfoot area. The upper really kind of hugs the foot, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. I would not size up or down. It fits true to size in my opinion. The good of this shoe is going to stand out almost immediately when you put the shoe on, which is that your foot gets locked down in place. There's no real risk of sliding around in the shoe, and your foot is very well protected. Scott's background, I believe, is more in kind of the orienteering world, where you're, working on some really technical terrain and whatnot. So they really excel in keeping your feet safe, and for some people, that means that this shoe is probably going to be a little too stiff overall in the upper. I'll talk about that a little bit more in the bad in terms of kind of the feel of that upper, but one thing for sure is your feet are going to be crazy protected. You're not going to have to worry about the foot slipping around. The upper is very well constructed, and the shoe overall feels very durable. The other thing that really stands out to me on the shoe is the grip. For anyone who is unfamiliar with Scott Sports, I think that is probably the area that they excelled the best on all of their shoes, is just the grips are designed, again, for more orienteering oftentimes, and they translated that to trail running. And so even with the slightly shallower lugs on the Ultracarbon RC compared to some of their other models, the grip is just going to be next level compared to most brands, even many brands that use Vibram on their outsoles. The shoe itself is very stable, very supportive. I did not feel, even though it is a higher stack shoe, that I was kind of unstable at any point in time on the trails. And the shoe itself is very versatile. It does have really good pace versatility. Because the foam is firmer, you can kind of slow it down, and that plate doesn't flex as much as you go a little bit slower, kind of on your easy paces. Again, remember, this shoe is designed for ultra running where paces are going to vary dramatically. And then with the addition of that carbon fiber plate, there is a lot of pop. So when you do kind of pick up the pace, you're able to get that spring and that forward propulsion. Now, as far as the bad goes, well, talking about that upper and how it really protects your feet, one of the things that you kind of lose in that is the comfort of it. I'm not sure if you can get the same level of durability and protection that Scott is trying to provide in a shoe while also making it a little bit more comfortable, but particularly around the heel and the ankle, just kind of this upper is really, really stiff, really rigid, and I think you could maybe break it in over more miles, but it may cause some rubbing, some chafing, some blistering, and some overall discomfort in that area. The other thing is, while that foam is very supportive, it is pretty firm. And so if you're going to be doing like double-digit runs, which most people who are wearing these shoes would be because they're designed for ultra running, it is a little bit tiring. And so if you don't like a firm ride underfoot, then these shoes are likely not going to be for you, and you may want to find a ultra option with maybe a supercritical kind of bouncier, more of maybe a PIBA-based foam. The shoe as a whole is also very narrow, like we kind of talked about in the fit. And so if you are a wide foot runner, or just because you're running ultras, you want your feet to be able to swell a little bit, I would potentially consider going with a wider size or a half size up from your regular size, just to give your foot a little bit more room for growth. Maybe have a second pair that is a half size bigger for transitions, for aid station footwear switches, things along those lines. In particular, in that midfoot, I did notice that the arch felt pretty pronounced. And so again, if you're not a fan of arch support, this shoe is likely just not for you. Now, as far as who this shoe is for, right, like we talked about, if you like a firmer ride underfoot, something that is more supportive, where you're not going to get kind of the cushiony feel underfoot that some people really, really like nowadays, then it could work for you for ultras. But my guess is the majority of ultra runners, or more of the casual ultra runner, this shoe may be a little bit too stiff for them, so may not be the best option there. But let's talk about obstacle course racing, things like Spartan racing, Savage Race, Tough Mudder, because I actually think that this shoe could really excel in that space. A lot of people race in VJ shoes, which are another European brand based out of Finland, really, really well known for their lug patterns and their grip. Scott Sports is another brand where I think that because you have that grip, because you can tackle kind of any type of terrain, and because of the varying terrain and surfaces that you run in a Savage Race, in a Spartan race, this shoe would probably excel quite a bit in those races. Oftentimes in those races, again, because you're doing so much, you want to protect your feet, and you're going to want something that just kind of is reliable as opposed to lightweight on foot. And so as you're running through mud, as you're running through gravel, as you're running potentially on some road, as you're running through some technical terrain, some rocky terrain, that changing terrain, having a shoe that is built, that is solid, that is protective, may be your advantage, even though it is heavier than maybe some of the other options out there. I would think maybe the Spartan 10K, Spartan kind of half marathon, so the Spartan Super Spartan Beast may be where you want to choose something like this. Definitely in the Spartan Ultra, depending on how fast you are, again, you have to weigh your options of, do you want something that's maybe a little bit lighter versus something that's a little bit heavier and more protective with better grip. But all in all, I think this is a really, really solid shoe. It's just going to come down to personal preferences, as that is the case with most shoes. Now, as far as comparisons go, I haven't run in as many trail shoes or different trail models from different brands as I have in road shoes. So I have a hard time kind of comparing it to a lot of other shoes. Compared to Hoka's, this is going to be a lot narrower, a lot firmer than pretty much any Hoka model that I've run on the trail on, and that is one brand that I actually have run in the large majority of their trail models. I think that this is most similar, again, if you are a Spartan racer, you're probably familiar with VJ shoes. Very, very similar feel overall to VJ shoes, but probably gives you a little bit more energy return, a little bit more pop. Here's an example of a VJ shoe. I haven't had a chance to run in it yet because I've been prioritizing road miles with the marathon I'm training for, but you can see it also has a very aggressive lug pattern underfoot. Again, so very, very similar, I think, to older models of VJ shoes. The new ones have updated foams and whatnot. But if you're looking for something that's a little bit faster, that is a little bit more versatile, that's really going to protect your feet, then this is going to be a really good option for you overall. So there we go. That's the Scott Ultracarbon RC. It is on sale right now because this is not a new release. It's been out for, I believe, around a year at this point. So I'm not sure if version 2 is coming out soon or what the deal is there, but wanted to make sure that I got a review on this shoe for you guys, for those who are interested in trail reviews. And with that, I'll just leave you guys with a question, which is, as you come and look at my shoe reviews, what are you guys wanting to see more of, and is trail a category that you would be more interested in me doing reviews going forward? We'll see you later, everyone.